the medical community right now, the number of subspecialties that are coming out of residency and fellowship programs are incredible. So there's a real drive towards specialization, but what we need to do is counterbalance that with broad-based thinking, some divergent thinking. So getting cross-functional people together to solve problems that may be outside of their realm of expertise. Getting surgeons and physicians outside of their specialization comfort zone, getting engineers outside of their comfort zone, getting people to really solve problems in a divergent way is really, I think, what we need. The great thing about hackathons is it really takes a different approach to problem solving in medicine. I mean, if you look back over the last, several hundred years, medicine has always been about experimenting and coming up with some new ways of doing things, but it typically involves, finding a solution by accident and then looking for 100 different problems that solution could solve. CRISPR is one of those great examples of that right now, but hackathons actually take a different approach. We look for one problem, we identify that one problem, and then look for 100 different solutions. So it's really sort of the counterbalance to the way the problem solving is approached. There are a lot of different benefits that come out of hackathons, so I think getting real clear is important. I also think it would be wise to invite members of the communications industry so that folks can learn how to make an effective pitch. So whatever idea and solution they come up with, they're able to really convey the idea in a great way and get it off the ground.
In this day and age, it's all about patient outcomes, and it is very value-based. There has to be a longitudinal solution to any given specific problem. It has to provide real value to a patient all along the chain, all along the patient's journey, and same thing with a physician. It has to have real clinical usefulness regarding outcomes in order for it to be of value. You just don't have that degree of regulation in most other categories. Even in financial services, there's a lesser degree of regulation than in pharmaceutical, and that makes it much more difficult to get an idea through the pipeline when you take into account pharmaceutical companies that have heavy regulatory problems and issues with how anything is presented to a clinician, for example. That's one set of problems. When you're dealing with large institutions such as hospital systems, they too have different problems that are not the same as the pharmaceutical companies. They're kind of competing interests. They are not interested in promoting a specific brand or a specific pharmacy company. They're interested in doing what's best for the patient, as is the pharma company, of course. And then there are payer and pharmacy considerations.
I was invited to be a mentor to MIT's Grand Hack in Boston last year. And I went out there and we're hanging out and all these little startup companies are forming with lawyers and engineers and doctors, and they all have these ideas on how they're going to transform healthcare. And they've got PhDs and MDs and super smart, talented people, and I'm a creative director who sketches things. And I'm like, how am I a mentor? Why am I here? And so I had a little bit of an identity crisis, and I went to the organizers, and they said, those people all have hard skills. You guys at the agency, you have soft skills. You are storytellers. You help coalesce information. So that's your job. Your job is to not be smarter, obviously, than these really smart people who got all these ideas. It's to help them tell the very best story that they can. And so we thought that was intriguing enough to make a panel here at South by Southwest. And the interesting thing about pharmaceutical marketing and pharma in general is it's an evidence-based industry, right? So products get approved because of data, and that trickles down to the marketing team, kind of invisibly and insidiously, but there it is, right? They want to know that everything's going to work. They're risk adverse. This whole industry is risk adverse, and it's data driven. Startups are almost the inverse of that, right? It's all about risk. It's all about pivoting. It's about being spontaneous, about, we had this idea and now let's go the other direction in response to the marketplace and the needs and the challenges, right? So as marketers, what we could learn from startups, and especially pharma marketers, is to be willing to change and course correct in the moment, as opposed to trying to qualify and quantify everything through research and be double, triple backed up.